Are you ready to learn why Filipinos make the best virtual assistants? Now in this video, I'm going to walk you through why Filipino virtual assistants are the best from someone who is totally biased as a fellow Filipino, as also someone who has worked with different people before, including clients and freelancers in the last decade basically that I've been on this space. Now like I said, a lot of this part will be a little bit biased just because I am a Filipino myself, but I have been asked over and over before of why to execute my virtual assistant agency is only based in the Philippines, why we don't hire a lot of foreigners basically for ourselves, and these are basically the 5 main reasons why. First one is English is taught in school. And this is something that surprisingly surprises a lot of people when I'm like giving them reasons why they should hire from the Philippines, is that the reality that English is an actual subject, I think all the way back in kindergarten, all the way to, of course, college, is a staple subject in every single grade as we go through school. We are taught grammar, spelling, we also have spelling bees in the Philippines, and a lot of it is because the Philippines used to be colonized by the US for about 30 years, so it was taught to us, and for a lot of the books and languages, it's kind of intertwined a little bit. We even have a funny term for people who use Tagalog, which is our national language, and English together. We call it Taglish. Even though for me, I know, I think 5 different languages. I know the one that I grew up with, which is Waray, the Bisaya, which is here where I'm at, or Cebuano. I know Tagalog, I know English. I'm forgetting the 5th one that I know, but essentially because it is taught in school, it is easier for you to work with Filipinos just because they know English as one of our major languages here. The other side of that, of course, is usually our spoken English is a little bit just a neutral accent, so it's easier to understand. For me, I did adopt an American accent just because my co-founders of the last 10 years are American, so I kind of just caught their accent a little bit. But most of the time when you are speaking to Filipinos, and yes, they are the people sometimes you are hearing when you're calling up your customer service line of a bank or some other service that you have, is usually typically the accents are neutral, so it's easier to understand. Next is we are usually culturally compatible. And what I mean by this is most of the time when it comes to working with more Western clients of ours, even the European clients of ours, it's a little bit easier to understand some cultural differences that you might have from one place to the other. And again, the reason for this is, again, we were colonized, and as well as we are really big consumers of Western movies and shows as well, so it's easy for us to see and understand nuances that usually if you're hiring from a different place that are not as exposed to that kind of content might not be easier for you to work with them. So it's kind of one of the things that makes it easier for a lot of our US and UK clients to work with us, just because like, oh, you know, we understand the reference, we saw that in a movie once or the TV show once, like, oh, we've seen New York, we've seen movies of it, so it gives us a little bit of a better context on what different clients might be talking about just because we've been exposed to that already. Next, and this is more of, when I wrote this down as part of the script, I thought of it as a joke, but in reality it's real. If as Filipinos, we find ways. And it's actually a tagline from a bank where it's, said, so-and-so bank, we find ways. But in reality, it really is a little bit of how Filipinos usually think. And I'll give you different examples. First one is because of the fact that the Philippines experiences a lot of natural disasters, from typhoons to volcanoes to just things blacking out, we have learned to adapt and be resilient and find ways to be able to get to what it is that we want. And that's kind of a little bit ingrained in our genes, in our culture, to be someone who finds a way when things are rough. So that means you have virtual assistants who are problem solvers, you have virtual assistants who are easily adaptable to different situations, and you get virtual assistants who always want to find a way to get to where you wanted to set it to be. Another example for this is that sometimes our infrastructure in the Philippines just isn't the best. We might not have the best internet, we might not have the best setup for ourselves. Is we basically find ways to be able to bridge the gap that we might have through also our community. In the Philippines, community is a really big thing still. It is still who you know in a lot of different ways. So we are always finding our connections, our solutions through other people as well, and finding mentors and finding people to work with. And we're not shy to ask for help a lot of the time. So we are always being able to, again, find ways. Now, the fourth reason is that we do have a very family first mindset. Now, it does have its pros and cons. The biggest con, of course, is if something happens in the family, we will focus everything on that. But the pro for you and your company, especially if you are starting out as a solopreneur and you're hiring your very first virtual assistant, is a lot of the time that means your Filipino virtual assistant will want to take care of you, will want to check in on you, and will want to work to create basically that relationship with you, especially if they weren't burnt out by a last client or anything like that. They will have that kind of instinct to kind of want to connect with you further. And honestly, for us at 2x2, it's a very important factor because it's one of the ways that you get someone who becomes your second brain in the business, someone who cares about you. So it's really important for you as you're managing your Filipino virtual assistant that you ask them like, hey, how are you doing? How's the family? How was the weekend? These are very simple questions, but it gives the assistant the chance to open up if there are issues basically that are going on that they can't talk about. Because this brings me then to the fifth reason why Filipinos are the best is we do have a lot of pride in our work. What that means on both ends is, on one end, if we're struggling with something, if family-wise, friends-wise, if something's going on in our personal life and it's affecting our work, it's sometimes hard for us to speak up because we have a lot of pride in our work. We always want to give the best. We always want to show up the best because we know that our output is equal to who we are. That's kind of a little bit of how we were raised. We always want to show up in the best way. We always want to make sure that you are happy with the output that we have created for you. Now, of course, I'm not speaking of all Filipinos, but probably like 8 out of 10 times you would find someone who is like that. So as you're considering, as you're thinking like, why should I hire a Filipino assistant? Why not hire someone locally? Of course, one of the other reasons for this is time zone wise, we're kind of a little bit in a good middle ground for someone who might be working from the US or the UK or Dubai or some Australia, somewhere else. The Philippine time zone is a little bit kinder because even though, let's say you are a US client, so you think like, hey, I need someone to do work full time, that means it'll be night shift. To be honest, you can have it where your assistant essentially works a little bit on your early morning. You have a little bit of a catch up until your noon. They go to sleep basically. And as you wrap up your day, you tag your assistant like, hey, this is all I got done. I need you to do this. Again, gives them that breathing space basically to get a lot more things done. So time zone wise, it's a little bit nicer as well because you have more flexibility versus if you hire someone in your same time zone, you have to be, up a certain time or staying up a certain time or just having to put in the effort, of course, of getting them a nice office, a nice place. You have someone who is working virtually, who does that for themselves already, takes care of themselves, and then you're able to find a really good window to be able to work together. I hope this has convinced you into hiring a Filipino virtual assistant. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button right there. Comment below any questions, or if you're a Filipino VA yourself, let us know your reasons why more clients should want to work with Filipinos. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home, which you guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember that small steps matters. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!